Caleb, I want a divorce. Chloe's voice was calm. I'm done. I'm done with this life where I can see the next 40 years stretching out in front of me. Exactly the same. Her chest heaved. Today was our third wedding anniversary. I looked at the mess on the floor, the dinner I'd made scattered everywhere, and then at her resolute face. The last bit of warmth in my heart evaporated. In 3 years of marriage, I had heard those same words at least 100 times. I was tired. I walked silently into the study, pulled a familiar document from the drawer, and placed it in front of her. Fine. I agree. The words divorce agreement were printed clearly in her eyes. Chloe froze. She seemed shocked that I, the guy who was always gentle and accommodating, would be so decisive. You already had this ready. Her voice was laced with disbelief. I've had it ready since the first time you told me you were bored. I picked up a pen and, in the space for the husband's signature, I wrote my name. Caleb. The strokes were firm, without a trace of hesitation. Chloe's face turned pale. The next day, we stood outside City Hall holding the bright red divorce certificates. It felt like they were burning my hands. We hadn't exchanged a single word through the entire process. As we walked out the main doors, she didn't even glance at me before hailing a cab and speeding away, as if I were a plague she couldn't escape fast enough. I stood there alone, feeling like the entire city had become a hollow shell. 3 years of marriage had become a joke. I walked into a 24-hour convenience store on the corner and grabbed a few bottles of beer from the cooler. The cashier gave me a look you'd reserve for a raving lunatic. I didn't care. Sitting on the cold concrete steps outside the store, I started chugging them one after another. The icy liquid slid down my throat, but did nothing to extinguish the fire in my chest. I don't know how long I was there before my consciousness started to blur. A pair of clean, white canvas sneakers appeared in my line of sight. Their owner had stopped right in front of me. With an effort, I tilted my head up. Against the dim yellow streetlight, I saw a familiar face. Zoe, my other childhood friend. She was wearing a simple white maxi dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. Her face with a mixture of confusion and concern. Caleb, what are you doing like this? Her voice was soft, like a feather brushing against my heart. My vision swam. I grinned. Zoe, what are you doing here? I live just around the corner. She crouched down and, without asking, looped her arm under mine to pull me up. A faint scent of gardenia drifted into my nose, a world away from the overpowering perfume Chloe always wore. The smell calmed me down in a way I couldn't explain. I let her half drag, half carry me into an elevator and then into an apartment. She dumped me unceremoniously onto a sofa and disappeared into the kitchen. A few minutes later, she returned with a steaming bowl of hangover soup. I didn't drink it. I just stared at her. Didn't you get married? I mumbled. Where's your husband? I remembered hearing she'd been set up in a marriage of convenience by her family shortly after I got married 3 years ago. Zoe's hand, the one holding the bowl, paused. The light in her eyes dimmed for a second before she composed herself. We're separated, almost divorced. She pushed the bowl into my hands and looked at me, turning the question back. What about you? You and Chloe. I raised the bowl and drank the scalding soup in one go, my throat burning. Then, holding up the empty bowl, I gave her a bitter smile. Divorced too. The air went still. Two freshly divorced people, staring at each other in the silent night. The next morning, I woke up with a splitting headache. I was in a soft, king-size bed, covered by a comforter that smelled like sunshine. This wasn't my room. The memories of last night flooded back, and I shot upright. From the living room, I heard the sizzle of something frying, followed by the rich aroma of breakfast. I walked out barefoot and saw Zoe in the kitchen, wearing a floral apron, flipping eggs in a pan. The morning sun streamed through the window, coating her in a soft, golden light. She looked like a painting. Hearing me, she turned her head and smiled. You're up? Go wash up. Breakfast is almost ready. I looked at her, my throat suddenly dry. Sorry for crashing here last night. She slid the fried eggs onto a plate and handed me a new toothbrush and towel. Are you kidding? How many times did you crash at my place when we were kids? Don't start getting polite with me now. With that one sentence, she dissolved all my awkwardness, pulling us back to a childhood where we shared everything. During breakfast, she told me I could stay as long as I needed. This place is empty most of the time anyway. It's a waste not to use the space. That's when I learned the full story of her marriage. It was an arrangement between two wealthy families, a merger with no emotion involved. Her husband, a guy named Preston, was in love with his college sweetheart, the one that got away. To keep pining for this dream girl, Preston was the one who suggested that after they signed the papers, they would live separate lives and not interfere with each other. Zoe agreed. So, from the very beginning, the marriage was just an empty shell. They didn't even bother putting on a show for their parents. After getting legally married, they went their separate ways. You married a guy like that? I was furious, feeling an overwhelming need to defend her. Family arrangement. I didn't have a choice. She said it calmly, as if telling someone else's story. But I'm almost free. The divorce is already in motion. She turned the tables to comfort me, patting the back of my hand. It's all in the past. We have to look forward. You too. Just stop and rest for a while. Her words were a warm current, soothing my shredded heart. I took her advice, requested a long leave of absence from work, and temporarily moved in with her. Every day, she cooked for me, trying out new recipes. She talked with me, took me for walks in the nearby park. She never once mentioned Chloe or asked about the details of my divorce. She just used her unique brand of gentle patience to heal my wounds, bit by bit. After staying for a while, I started noticing that pieces of me were scattered all over her home. On the bookshelf was the complete, signed collection of my favorite sci-fi author, a collection I hadn't even been able to complete myself. The fridge was always stocked with a specific brand of ice-cold Coke I loved. On the balcony, a few chubby succulents were thriving, a type I had once mentioned on Instagram that I found cute. An idea began to form in my mind, one I was afraid to entertain. I didn't dare think too deeply about it, afraid it was just a hopeful delusion. One night, I finished up a work project in the study and came out to find Zoe sitting on the sofa, staring at her phone, her eyes red. The screen showed a text conversation with a man. What's wrong? I asked softly. She looked up at me, and tears immediately started streaming down her face. Her voice was choked with sobs. Preston, he's changed his mind. He's dragging his feet on the divorce. I took her phone and quickly scanned the chat history. It turned out that Preston's old flame, the one who lived abroad, had recently married a black man and had a kid. Preston was devastated. His whole world had collapsed. So now, he remembered Zoe, his wife in name only. He wanted to keep her as a backup, a tool for his emotional recovery, and he was refusing to let her go. I read the shameless, selfish messages from Preston, then looked at Zoe, who was crying her eyes out. A rage that had been simmering for weeks finally boiled over. You're gonna let this bastard get away with this? I snatched her phone and, without a second thought, blocked and deleted Preston's contact information. I'll help you. Zoe, stunned by my sudden action, allowed a small, watery laugh. She wiped her tears, a sly glint appearing in her red-rimmed eyes. Okay. She moved closer, proposing a plan so audacious it made my heart pound. You, she said, will pretend to be my new lover. We'll go provoke him, humiliate him, and make him agree to the divorce just to save face. I was floored. Is that a good idea? It could ruin your reputation. Zoe just raised an eyebrow, a playful look in her eyes. Please, you have no idea how many times you snuck into my room during sleepovers when we were kids. Don't tell me you're scared now. Her words left me speechless, my cheeks burning hot. She'd brought up an embarrassing memory from our childhood, and I had no choice but to go along with it. Fine, I'll help you. Day 1 of the operation. Zoe arranged to meet Preston at a high-end coffee shop, telling him she wanted to discuss the divorce one last time. Before we left, she changed into a beautiful champagne-colored dress and put on flawless makeup. She stood in front of me and did a little spin. How do I look? Amazing, I said with genuine admiration. She smiled, satisfied, then walked over and linked her arm through mine. Her arm was soft, and through the thin fabric of my shirt, I could feel the warmth of her skin. My heart skipped a beat. When we got to the coffee shop, Preston was already there. He was wearing a tailored suit, his hair perfectly coiffed, looking every bit the corporate hotshot. But when he saw Zoe walk in, clinging intimately to my arm, that well-crafted mask instantly cracked. His face turned a shade of gray, so fast you could practically watch the blood drain from it. I could feel his eyes, sharp as poison-tipped knives, darting back and forth between our interlocked arms. He had always treated Zoe like an accessory, something he owned but paid little attention to. Now, the accessory not only had a mind of her own, but was about to break free from his grasp entirely. The negotiation began. Zoe calmly stated her demands, while Preston deflected with one excuse after another. I sat beside her and, according to our plan, began my performance. I picked up a small piece of cake, speared it with a fork, and held it to Zoe's lips. Open up. Zoe played along perfectly, her cheeks flushing slightly as she opened her mouth and took the bite. A tiny smudge of cream was left on the corner of her lips. I pulled out a napkin and, with a natural, intimate gesture, gently wiped it away. Slow down. No one's going to steal it from you. Every move, every word was dripping with affection. Under the table, Preston's fists were clenched so tight I could hear his knuckles cracking. The look he shot us could have started a fire, but he managed to maintain a shred of composure and didn't explode on the spot. In the end, the negotiation failed. Preston still refused to sign the divorce papers. He stood up, looking down at me with disdain, and threw out a final threat. "Zoe, you'd better not regret this." As he left, his eyes on me were filled with jealousy and venom. A few days later, Zoe and I met Preston again. This time, the location was downstairs from his corporate office, right at the peak of rush hour. I drove my car and parked it in the most conspicuous spot right in front of the main entrance. Zoe came out of the building and spotted my car immediately. She walked straight over, opened the door, and slid into the passenger seat. I didn't start the car. Instead, I leaned over toward her. Just then, Preston walked out of the main doors, laughing and chatting with a group of colleagues and friends. He saw us instantly. The exact moment his eyes locked on us, Zoe leaned in and planted a loud, firm kiss on my cheek. The sound echoed in the quiet evening air. Zoe's face instantly turned scarlet, and Preston, as planned, was triggered. Like an enraged bull, he stormed over and yanked open the passenger side door. "Who the hell do you think you are? Don't you dare touch my woman!" he roared, pointing a finger at my face. All of his colleagues stopped in their tracks, their faces plastered with expressions of pure, unadulterated glee. Zoe immediately got out of the car and stood between us, her face ice cold. "Preston, let's be clear. I've already filed for divorce with the court. We are not husband and wife. Who I'm with has nothing to do with you. I don't agree to the divorce. As long as you're my wife for one day, you're my wife for life." Preston screamed, losing all control. I gently pulled Zoe behind me, shielding her. I looked at the man sputtering with rage in front of me and smiled. "What's the matter? Your college dream girl went off and had a baby with some guy overseas, doesn't want you anymore, and now you want to come crawling back to Zoe." I raised my voice intentionally. "Too bad. It's too late. Zoe's with me now." My words were a knife, twisting right in Preston's heart. His face turned the color of raw liver. He pointed at me, shaking with fury. You. Behind him, his colleagues started whispering and pointing. Exposed and humiliated in public, Preston completely lost it. He pointed at me and screamed with all his might. "You want my damaged goods? You're not picky, are you?" The words damaged goods were like poison needles, stabbing deep into Zoe's heart. Her body trembled, and her face went chalk white. Hearing that, the smile on my face only deepened. I took a step forward, leaned close to Preston's ear, and said in a voice just loud enough for everyone around to hear, a voice dripping with mock sincerity, "Oh, I absolutely want her. Not only do I have a thing for taking what idiots like you take for granted, I'm practically a professional." I clapped him on the shoulder, my smile wide and genuine. "Besides, everyone in your little circle knows you've been playing the part of the devoted saint for your long-lost love. You and Zoe were married for 3 years, and you never even laid a hand on her." I leaned in closer. "So I'm not picking up your damaged goods. I'm helping you complete your tragic, romantic narrative. Think of me as the guy who helps you cement your legacy." My speech was met with dead silence. A second later, the sound of Preston's colleagues trying and failing to stifle their laughter rippled through the crowd. Preston's face went from liver red to eggplant purple, then to a ghastly white. He wanted to argue, but he was trapped. He had built his entire identity around being the devoted man. If he admitted he hadn't touched Zoe, he'd confirm he was a fool who pined for another woman, and a laughingstock who couldn't perform his marital duties. If he denied it, he'd be calling himself a liar. He could only watch, powerless, as I triumphantly wrapped my arm around Zoe's shoulder and led her away through a chorus of snickers, leaving him to face the strange, pitying stares of his colleagues alone. After that scene, Preston became the office joke. The devoted man, celibate for his one true love. The labels he had once worn with pride were now punchlines. He couldn't stand the looks from his co-workers anymore. That mix of pity, mockery, and contempt. The very next day, he called Zoe. Through gritted teeth, he agreed to the divorce. His only condition was that we never, ever appear in front of him again. The moment she got the divorce certificate, Zoe let out a long, deep sigh of relief. Standing in the sunlight outside City Hall, she seemed to glow, radiating a palpable sense of freedom. She turned to me, her eyes sparkling, filled with starlight and laughter. "Caleb, thank you. There's no need for thanks between us." That night, to celebrate her new life, we opened a bottle of red wine at home. No food, just wine. After a few glasses, the atmosphere began to feel charged. Zoe's cheeks were flushed a beautiful shade of pink, and her normally clear eyes were now glistening hazy and captivating. Suddenly, she stood up from the sofa and walked slowly toward me. Then, to my utter shock, she sat down right on my lap. Her soft body pressed against mine, her warm breath tickling my ear. She wrapped her arms around my neck and whispered, her voice a seductive caress. "Caleb, earlier today, you said you were a professional, right?" My heart hammered against my ribs, and blood rushed to my head. I froze, stiff as a board. I quickly raised my hands to push her away. "Zoe, don't mess around. That was just an act." My voice was hoarse and dry. But she suddenly dipped her head and silenced the rest of my words with her soft, warm lips. Her kiss was hesitant, clumsy, yet filled with a reckless bravery and passion. My mind went blank. I gave up all resistance. A long moment later, our lips parted. She rested her forehead against mine, panting slightly, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She looked me straight in the eye and said, her voice clear and deliberate, "Then the act needs a finale." Her voice held a hint of triumphant laughter and a barely perceptible tremor. "If I get pregnant with your child tonight, wouldn't I be a taken woman for real?" She added, "Then you, the professional, would have to take responsibility for me, all the way to the end." Her words, her boldness, the do-or-die look in her eyes, it all ignited the emotions I had suppressed for so long. I shifted my weight, flipping her on her back beneath me, and kissed her fiercely. To hell with reason. To hell with restraint. After that night, my relationship with Zoe changed fundamentally. We went from being childhood friends and roommates to a real couple. Our life together, once politely respectful, was now filled with the sweet, messy reality of love. I met her parents soon after. They weren't surprised we were together, nor did they object. Her father clapped me on the shoulder and sighed. We were wrong to put Zoe through that arrangement before. She's a grown woman now. Her happiness should be in her own hands. Her mother held my hand and wouldn't stop saying how much more handsome and decent I looked than that Preston guy. I found a new job close to her apartment. Zoe quit her old, boring job and started making plans to open her own flower shop. We went grocery shopping together and argued over what flavor of potato chips to buy. We snuggled on the sofa watching movies and cried over sappy plot points. We were like any other ordinary couple in the world, enjoying a simple, stable happiness. One evening, as I held her in my arms, I finally asked the question that had been lingering in my mind for so long. "Zoe, you're so amazing. Why did you ever agree to a marriage like that in the first place?" She snuggled into my chest, her voice muffled. "Because you married Chloe." My heart seized. She finally told me how heartbroken she had been when I chose to be with the outgoing, vivacious Chloe. She felt like her whole world had collapsed. When her family arranged the marriage later, she agreed out of a sense of despair. She was actually relieved when Preston proposed they live separate lives. She said she had been waiting for me to come back to her. I pulled her into a tighter embrace, my heart filled with an endless ache of guilt and tenderness. I kissed the top of her head, whispering, I'm sorry, over and over in her ear. I swore to myself that for the rest of my life, I would never let her suffer again. Our sweet daily life was inevitably noticed by our mutual circle of friends. The news spread quickly. And of course, Chloe found out. She saw it on Instagram. It was a photo I had posted of Zoe and me cooking together in the kitchen. I was hugging her from behind, and she was looking back at me, her face lit up with a brilliant smile. The caption read, "The simple things." A moment later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Chloe. "Caleb, you moved on fast." With Zoe, her tone was interrogative, incredulous, as if I were the one who had betrayed her. It was laughable. She was the one who had walked out on me. I stared at the two messages, my face blank, and typed a reply. "Yes, I'm very happy now. Let's just stay out of each other's lives." I hit send. Then I found her profile picture, held it down, and tapped the button, block and delete. The whole process was seamless. Afterward, I tossed my phone aside and went back to the kitchen to help Zoe wash vegetables. After a few months of her supposed liberated life, Chloe finally slammed into the brick wall of reality. She thought that after the divorce, she'd have a line of successful, attractive men waiting to sweep her off her feet and show her a life of passion and excitement, just like in the TikTok videos. But the men she met were one disappointment after another. Some were after her money, others were just after her body, their eyes undressing her the moment they met. Not one of them was sincere. The passion and excitement she craved turned out to be nothing more than a blur of alcohol, lies, and one-night stands. She started to miss the stable, predictable life we'd had. She missed the breakfast I made for her every morning, the lamp I always left on when she came home late, the way I took care of her every little need. So, she started calling me and texting over and over, but I never received any of them. When she couldn't get through, she didn't give up. Instead, she found my new office and waited for me downstairs. I saw her standing by the entrance as soon as I walked out after work. She looked pitifully fragile, her eyes red-rimmed. When she saw me, she looked as if she'd found a lifeline. "Caleb!" She ran over and grabbed the corner of my jacket, her voice choked with emotion. "Caleb, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Can we get back together? I'll never cause trouble again, I swear. I'll be a good wife to you." She was crying, a tactic that used to work on me every time. But now, looking at her, all I felt was a profound sense of annoyance. I coldly shook her hand off, taking a step back to create distance between us. "Chloe, you made your choice. You were the one crying and screaming about how our life together was suffocating you, that it had no future. I gave you what you wanted. Now you should do the same for me." I looked at her and said, each word clear and sharp, "I have a girlfriend now, and I love her very much." She didn't believe it, or rather, she refused to. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, you're just saying that to hurt me. How long has it been since the divorce? You couldn't possibly love someone else this soon." Then a thought seemed to strike her. She stared at me intently. "It's Zoe, isn't it? But she's married. How could you two be together?" I had no interest in explaining the messy details. "That's none of your business." I tried to walk around her, but she suddenly threw her arms around my waist from behind, pressing her face into my back and wailing. "Caleb, don't go. Please, give me one more chance. I really can't live without you." Her cries attracted the attention of passers-by. Pointing fingers and curious stares felt like 1,000 needles pricking my skin. My patience finally ran out. Forcefully, one by one, I pried her fingers from my waist. Then, I spun around to face her. I looked at her tear-streaked face and, with all the strength I could muster, told her, 1, we are divorced. Legally, we are strangers. You have no right to touch me. 2, my girlfriend is Zoe. She's also divorced. We are very happy together, and we're planning on getting married. And 3, I want you to stay out of my life from now on. If you don't, I won't hesitate to forget the 3 years of marriage we once had." Without another glance, I turned, pushed my way through the crowd of onlookers, and walked away without looking back. Not even once. After that public and merciless rejection, Chloe quieted down for a few days. I thought she had finally accepted reality and given up, but I had underestimated her shamelessness and tenacity. Her next move was even more despicable. She went after my parents. That weekend, she and her parents showed up at my family's house, loaded down with expensive gifts. The moment she walked in the door, Chloe dropped to her knees in front of my mom and dad. She clung to my mom's leg, crying as if her heart was breaking. She said she knew she was wrong, that she had been foolish to divorce me, that she regretted it every day and wanted to get back together. Her parents chimed in, saying that couples fight and make up, and urged my parents to remember the good times and help talk some sense into me. My parents are old-fashioned, sentimental people. In the 3 years Chloe was married to me, she had been sweet and charming, and had completely won them over. Seeing her crying so miserably, their resolve softened immediately. My mom called me right away. The moment I picked up, her voice was heavy with concern. "Caleb, what on earth is going on with you and Chloe? She's here," crying her eyes out, saying she knows she was wrong. "She seems really sincere. Maybe you should give her another chance." In the background, I could faintly hear Chloe sobbing. I felt a surge of frustration. I made my position crystal clear. "Mom, that's impossible. It's completely over between us. I have a girlfriend now. It's Zoe, and I'm planning to bring her home to meet you." My mom went silent on the other end. After a moment, Chloe's father took the phone. He spoke to me in a patronizing, pressuring tone. "Caleb, this is your Uncle Joe. Chloe has been spoiled by us since she was a little girl, so she could be a bit willful. But she really does have you in her heart, and she truly regrets what she did. You were husband and wife, after all. After all these years together, can't you find it in your heart to forgive her just this once? You can't be so cruel." He was trying to guilt-trip me. I let out a cold laugh. "Mr. Miller," it was Chloe who insisted on the divorce. She said living with me wasn't exciting enough. I did what she wanted and let her go find her excitement. The least she can do is return the favor and let me have some peace. As for our relationship, I paused, my voice dropping to an icy calm. That ended the moment I signed the divorce papers. I hung up. I knew there was no point in talking to them further. I had to cut this off clean and fast. I immediately sent a text to Zoe. "Zoe, get ready. This weekend, I'm taking you home to meet my parents." She quickly replied with an okay, followed by a flexing bicep emoji. Seeing it on my screen, my tense nerves relaxed just a little. Chloe must have found out from my parents that I was bringing Zoe home that weekend because she completely lost it. She somehow got the address of the apartment Zoe and I were living in. On Saturday morning, she showed up at our door. The doorbell rang while I was in the bathroom shaving. Zoe went to get it. Hello. Zoe's voice was gentle. Then, Chloe's sharp, hostile voice cut through the air. Zoe, what are you doing here? Where's Caleb? I heard the commotion and quickly wiped my face, stepping out of the bathroom. The first thing I saw was Chloe, who had already pushed her way into the entryway, as if she owned the place. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, but then she saw Zoe in her loungewear behind me, and her expression curdled into one of jealousy and contempt. My face went hard. What are you doing here? I'll let you in. Get the hell out. My voice was ice. Chloe was stung by my tone. She went berserk, pointing at Zoe and screaming. I should have known. So it was you little homewrecker. Zoe, you're a divorced, used-up piece of trash. What right do you have to stand next to him? You think you're worthy? The words used-up piece of trash were like 3 poison daggers, stabbing right into Zoe's heart. The color drained from her face. I was overcome with a protective fury. I pulled Zoe tightly behind me and glared at Chloe, forcing the words through my teeth. Shut your filthy mouth. I'll say it one more time. Get out. Seeing that insulting Zoe wasn't working, Chloe turned on me. Her expression suddenly shifted to one of crazed, tearful victimhood. She looked at me and cried out something so utterly deranged it shattered my perception of reality. Caleb, I was wrong. If you like married women, if you want to be a homewrecker, why don't you just come after me again? I'm a married woman that you made. The real deal. Isn't that better than her? This sham of a wife who is a wife in name only? Her shameless, insane rant was so absurd I almost laughed. There's no reasoning with a crazy person. I was done talking. I strode forward, grabbed her thin arm, and started dragging her toward the door as if she were a sack of garbage. Caleb, let go of me. You're hurting me. She shrieked, struggling and clawing at my arm, leaving several bleeding scratches. I ignored it. I dragged her outside, bent down to pick up the purse she had dropped in the entryway, and threw it out after her. Then, over her screams and curses, I slammed the door shut with a resounding bang. The world was finally quiet. I leaned my back against the closed door, gasping for breath. My arm was stinging, but I didn't care. I turned around immediately and saw Zoe still standing where I'd left her, her face pale, her body trembling slightly. I walked over and pulled her into a tight hug. It's okay. You're safe now. I murmured, stroking her back over and over. Don't listen to a word that lunatic says. She's just jealous of you. Zoe stayed in my arms for a long moment before she slowly started to calm down. She looked up, her eyes red but clear. There was no weakness in them, only worry. I'm fine. I'm just worried. What if she goes and tells your parents a bunch of lies? Her words were prophetic. After I threw her out like trash, Chloe ran, crying straight to my parents' house. This time, she wasn't begging for forgiveness. She was there for slander and revenge. In front of my parents, she spun a web of lies, twisting the truth until it was unrecognizable. She told them that I had started an affair with a married Zoe while we were still married. She painted Zoe as the third party who had destroyed our marriage. She cast herself as the poor, pitiful victim, betrayed by both her husband and her best friend, crying that I had cheated on her first and forced her into a divorce. A double affair, sleeping with his wife's best friend, who was also married. Every phrase was a bombshell, designed to destroy a normal family's reputation. My parents knew my character, but Chloe's performance was just too convincing, her tears too genuine. And some of the timelines she mentioned were, admittedly, ambiguous enough to raise suspicion. Their conviction began to waver. They started to doubt me. Soon enough, my mother's call came. Her tone was more serious than I had ever heard it. Caleb, you get home right now. Immediately. You're going to explain this to me, face to face. In the background, I could still hear Chloe's broken, pathetic sobs. Hearing that fake crying, my heart turned to ice. Okay, I'm on my way. I hung up and looked at Zoe, whose face was etched with worry. I took her hand. It was cold as stone. I wrapped my own around it, squeezing tight. Don't be afraid. We'll go together. We have to face this eventually. And this time, I'm going to make sure everyone sees her for who she really is. I took Zoe with me to my parents' house. The moment we walked in, the oppressive atmosphere was suffocating. Chloe was sitting on the sofa, her face tear-streaked, leaning against my mother's shoulder and sobbing quietly. My parents sat in the main armchairs, their faces grim and serious. It felt like an inquisition. When my mother saw Zoe behind me, her expression soured even more. She pushed Chloe away, stood up, and pointed at Zoe, demanding of me, "Caleb, what is the meaning of this? Is what Chloe said true? Were you two carrying on an affair when you were both still married?" My mother's lips were trembling with anger. Before I could speak, Chloe launched into her performance. She stood up, pointed a shaking finger at Zoe, and cried, "Annie, it was her. She's the one who seduced Caleb. They were sneaking around behind my back for ages. Caleb divorced me for her." She wailed as if she had suffered the greatest injustice in the world. I looked at her pathetic acting with disgust. Ignoring her, I took Zoe's hand and walked to stand before my parents. I had her sit beside me, then looked my parents straight in the eye. "Mom, Dad, I'm only going to say 3 things." My voice was calm, but clear enough to cut through Chloe's continuing sobs. 1. Chloe was the one who initiated the divorce. Her reason was that she found our life too boring and wanted to go find excitement. I added, I only brought out the divorce agreement after she had a tantrum on our anniversary and demanded a divorce. 2. Zoe's marriage was a business arrangement set up by her family. She and that man were separated from the day they signed the papers. It was a marriage in name only. She has done nothing wrong. I looked them in the eye, and even if she wasn't innocent, neither am I. We're both divorced. What's the problem? 3. We only got together officially after we had both finalized our respective divorces and were legally single. We haven't wronged anyone. I explained everything, logically and truthfully. My parents knew me, and I could see in their eyes that they were already 80% convinced. But then they'd glance at Chloe, who looked like she was about to faint from grief, and they would hesitate. They didn't want to air our dirty laundry and make a bigger mess. Seeing their indecision, a flicker of triumph appeared in Chloe's eyes. She knew that as long as my parents didn't side with me, she still had a chance. I looked at the stalemate and sneered internally. It was time to play my trump card. I pulled Zoe to her feet to stand beside me. I looked at my parents, took a deep breath, and announced, slowly and deliberately, Mom, Dad, I brought Zoe here today to formally tell you that she is the one. For the rest of my life, she's the only one I will marry. And I will absolutely, under no circumstances, be getting back together with Chloe. Then I dropped the bomb. Furthermore, to show you how serious we are, we've started trying for a baby. The phrase trying for a baby exploded in the living room like a thunderclap. My parents froze. Chloe's sobs stopped mid-hiccup. In the next second, I saw my parents' eyes light up. They shone brighter than a 1,000-watt bulb. They had been wanting grandchildren for years. But throughout our 3-year marriage, Chloe had always refused, using excuses like, I haven't had enough fun yet, or having a baby will ruin my figure. It had always been one of my parents' biggest regrets. In that instant, the scales tipped. Completely. My mother was the first to react. The hesitation and conflict on her face vanished, replaced by radiant joy. She shot up from her seat and peeled Chloe's hands off my father's sleeve. The movement was swift and decisive. All right, that's enough. Chloe, dear, I understand now. You can't force matters of the heart. It seems you and our Caleb just weren't meant to be. As she spoke, she was already half pushing, half guiding Chloe toward the front door. These are things for you young people to sort out yourselves. We older folks shouldn't get involved. It just makes things awkward for both families, don't you think? My dad cleared his throat and said to a still-dazed Chloe in a tone that left no room for argument, Chloe, stop this. Listen to your auntie. It's time to go home. His attitude had done a complete 180. Chloe stared, dumbfounded, unable to believe that her biggest supporters had just been swayed by 2 simple words. She was politely but firmly escorted out of the house by my mother. The door closed with a soft click. The world was once and for all quiet. The moment the door shut, my mom spun around, took a shocked Zoe by the hands, and smiled a smile so warm you'd think she was looking at her own daughter. Oh dear, come sit. Don't just stand there. Try for baby. That's wonderful news. Wonderful. As a mother, I have plenty of experience. I'll make you a list later, tell you all the best things to eat. My dad, meanwhile, pulled me aside conspiratorially and retrieved a bottle of ancient-looking medicinal liquor from his prize cabinet. He shoved the bottle into my hands and gave me a sly wink. This was my secret weapon back in the day. Drink this and I guarantee. Well, you know, I looked at the murky, dark liquid in the bottle and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That evening, my mom pulled Zoe into her bedroom, closed the door, and spent a long time imparting her vast knowledge in some supposedly effective positions. When Zoe finally emerged from the room, her face was so red it looked like it was about to catch fire, and she was practically tripping over her own feet. Later that night, back at our own apartment, we showered and got into bed. I had just laid down when Zoe wrapped herself around my back like a little kitten, She hugged my neck, pressing her hot cheek against my shoulder blade. She whispered in my ear, her voice soft and tender, laced with a shy determination. Caleb, well, since your parents are so excited, and your mom gave me so much advice. Her voice grew smaller, like the buzzing of a mosquito. I think maybe we should practice what she preached. Tonight, I turned over. Looking at her blushing face and sparkling eyes, my heart swelled. She bit her lip, gathering her courage, and continued. After all, practice makes perfect. And, I want one. A real baby with you. I lowered my head and kissed her,